Hey guys, welcome to Salesforce Tutorials. Hope you are staying safe at your home. Please be inside your home, don't go out. So we'll begin. So this video is part of the Lightning Web Component series, and in this video we'll be understanding the life cycle and the lifecycle hooks which are present in LWC component. So let's start. So our agenda is to go through lifecycle flow, which is like creation to render. Then when you remove a component, what is the flow which happens when you remove a component? Then a demo to understand different lifecycle hooks that are present for us to make our custom interactions with the component in different stages of the lifecycle. Okay, so let's move to our first slide. Creation to render. So yeah, this image is copied from Salesforce official document. Yeah, so they have given this complete life cycle. So I'll just go through that. So first thing, when a component renders, first thing happens is your constructor is called. Then all your public properties are set in the component. Once the public properties are set, parent is inserted into the DOM. So basically this example is talking about two components, one child and one parent. So wherever it is written parent, that means that is a parent component. And then there is one more child component inside that parent which is getting rendered. So for that they have shown this life cycle. So first thing, constructor is called on the parent, then public properties are set on the parent, then parent is inserted to DOM. Once parent is inserted to DOM, connected callback is called on the parent. And from this connected callback, as your parent is already inserted, you can reference different DOM elements. Then parent is rendered. Once parent is rendered, after that constructor is called on the child, then public properties of the child are set, then child is inserted to DOM, connected callback. Once child is rendered, rendered callback is called, so that once everything has completed rendering, if you want to do anything or any interactions, then you can do that in the rendered callback. Once child components are rendered on the screen, on completely rendered, then the parent's rendered callback is called. So this is the place where if you want to interact with your child component, or if you want to interact with any of the sub components which are present inside the component, and you suppose you want to change the style or something, or you want to call some method of the child component, then you have to do that in the rendered callback, because that is the place where your parent is rendered as well as all the child components are rendered. Okay, so we'll be looking into the demo, like how we can interact with these different lifecycle hooks. Yep. So this is the flow taken when a component is removed from the DOM. Or so first thing, parent is removed from the DOM, then a disconnected callback is called on the parent, then child is removed from the DOM, and then disconnected callback on the child is called. So make sure, like when if you're writing any code and you're trying to reference, suppose you have written something in the disconnected callback in your child, at that time parent has already been removed, so you will not be able to access that in your DOM. So yeah, but when you are if you want to write something on the parent to interact with the child, it will still be there, so you can do that. Yeah, so this is the flow taken. Now next is demo. That is the interesting part. Let's see how to work with this lifecycle hooks. So for this demo, I have created three components: lifecycle, lifecycle parent, and lifecycle container. So we'll start from the container and see what we have done. Uh, Let me increase the screen size. Yeah. So in this parent container component, what I have done is I have inserted the lightning parent lifecycle parent component, and I have inserted one toggle button. So toggle button is just like display component, and there is a change handler on that. When a change handler is called, there is a variable is visible which is toggled, And what happens when this is toggled? Let's see. We are passing this value to the parent component, and if we go into the parent component, we'll see what will happen. So basically we are displaying a text parent component, then again we are displaying one toggle button which is like make changes in parent, then we are displaying is visible here, and there is one more toggle button which shows show screen to, which is basically specific to this life cycle, and I'll show you how it is done. It is basically taking value from this toggle button and sending it to the child component, nothing else. So once we go to the JS, this is the important thing what that you need to understand. So in the parent component, what I have done is I have written all these lifecycle hooks, and I have written a console log with the date so that you can understand what statement is getting called when and what is the sequence and at what date time it is getting called. So first thing, like as you saw in the life cycle, first thing is constructor is called, and I have written a console log statement where I'm saying parent colon constructor and the date, so that you know like which. So basically we are logging all the uh, these debug statements in the console, and we'll see the sequence when which lifecycle hook is getting called. So one consideration when you're working with constructor, first thing is super should be called so that it completes the process, and after that you can do any customization. Once your component is added to the DOM, then your connected callback is called. So this is the log for that. This is when you are removing the component from the DOM. So this will be called and it will be logging parent disconnected. Then once everything is added to the DOM, like parent is added plus child is added, after that you will get this parent rendered callback. Okay. After connected callback, once your rendering is being done, at that time this is called, where you can specify like what to render. So I have not written a scenario for this in the parent component, but you will see that in the child component once I'm going through that. So these are the lifecycle hooks which are present on the parent, and it will show you like these logs will show you which lifecycle hook is getting called when. Is it same as it was depicted in the lifecycle flow or not? These are the two handlers. First is the is visible, that we are just switching and we are seeing like how it is visible. We are just changing and seeing how it is getting rendered on the screen. What are things, what are the lifecycle hooks which are getting called? This section is for the this is the handler for the second toggle button, which is basically switching the value in the display screen to, which is specific to child component, and we are passing this value to the child component. Now we'll see the child component, what is happening there. In the child component, nothing much is displayed, is it's just like a child component. There are two HTMLs in this. One is lifecycle.html, which is the component name, and the second is second screen, which says, hey, I am a screen 2. Okay. Now we'll go and see what's happening in the JS file. So this attribute was exposed in the parent component, like in the child component, I'm exposing this as a public property, and this was getting set from the parent component. When so what I'm doing on this basis of this attribute is I am utilizing that in the render lifecycle hook. So what I'm doing, depending on this, I am switching my templates. So these are the templates, like template 2 and template 1 are getting imported here. If I remove this, are getting imported here. So template 1 determines to the lifecycle, and template 2 determines the second screen.html. So if my second screen 2 enabled is true, that means template 2 will be displayed. That means second screen.html will be displayed. And if it is false, then template 1 will be displayed. So by default, it is false. Understood? So we have three components. One is the container component, one is the parent, and one is the child. so that we can show, and all the lifecycle hooks that console.logs that I have set in the parent component and the child component to show the relation, like what is getting called when. Okay, now let's go and see this in the org. So this is the documentation basically which I was going through. So one important point I just highlighted here, which is so all these lifecycle hooks are part of the HTML custom element specification, whereas the rendered callback and there is one more error callback, two things. Those are specific to LWC. Those are not part of the generic HTML custom element specification. So yeah, till the time you're working on Salesforce, uh, till the time you're working with LWC, it's fine. Like these two lifecycle hooks you can utilize here. But when you're working on a generic HTML custom element specification or like some other library which is following that, there you will not get these lifecycle hooks. So two of them, rendered callback and error callback. I have not shown the error callback code. I'll show once I'm done with this. Okay. So let's clear our console, reload our page. So what I've done is in my case detail page, I have added one more tab and I've added my components there. So what I'll do, I'll just switch to this. Let me reduce the size and move it a little bit up so that you can see easily. Okay, for now ignore this. First thing I'm doing, I have removed my components. Okay, so this is from my container component and my now child is not getting displayed, like parent and child are not getting displayed. Once I enable this, my parent and child will be added to the DOM. So let's see what all lifecycle hooks are called. So yeah, these hooks are called. First, parent constructor is called. Same time, I guess all of them are on the same times. It's just a difference of milliseconds. So all this you will get the time, date time same. Okay. So first parent constructor is called, then connected callback is called. After that, your component is rendered. Then your child's constructor is called, child's connected callback is called, child's render is called, child's rendered callback is called. See, all these child lifecycle hooks are called, and then parent rendered callback is called. Okay. So if you have any scenario like you are adding a suppose a modal component and your modal is a child component, so what you can do is just add your child component as modal and create a method, set method inside your child component, and so now you want to display it once your parent and child is loaded. After that you want to enable it and display it on screen. So in the parents rendered callback you can just call show method or like whatever method you want to write in your child component and just expose it as a public property, and then you can refer it and call it from the parent, and then your child will be displayed on the screen. So it's just like switching your css and all, so you can do that. Okay, so basically it's for those functionalities. Now you can see there are different toggle buttons. So we have seen uh, the life cycle flow, what happens when which lifecycle hook is getting called when at the time of addition of the component on the screen. Now we'll see when we remove the component from the screen, what happens, what is getting called. So yeah, I'll remove that. uh, I already had till here. Let me do this. Let me clear this out, then it will be easy to understand. Now I have removed this. So see, parent disconnected callback called, then child's disconnected callback called. Simple. First parent's disconnected callback is called, and then child's disconnected callback is called, and then both are removed from the screen. So you can see it is removed from the screen. Okay. Then we'll see one more scenario. So now there are two things. One, this toggle button, which is just basically modifying one of my attribute in the same component, parent component, and I'm displaying that is visible here. So when I switch this attribute will be changed on the screen. So we'll see when attribute is modified in the component, what all lifecycle hooks are called. So yeah, I am deactivating this. So see what was called. My rendered was called and my rendered callback was called. Okay. Same thing. When I enable or disable, I change any of the attributes which are tied up with the screen, it will call my parents render and render callback every time. So yeah, anything that you're writing in these lifecycle hooks, anything that you do not want to execute again and again, that should be driven through a variable which where you can set like once it is run, please don't run again. Yeah, so that same static variable concept that we use in Salesforce triggers, same concept we have to apply here. Okay, but you have seen like although my one attribute is changing and my child component was also present inside that parent component, but it was not impacted. Nothing has changed in my child component. So it will only load when any attribute which is getting passed or any attribute which is associated with the child component is modified. So this attribute was not associated with my child component. So that's why child component was not modified. And the second one, second toggle that display screen to is associated with my child component where I am modifying like which template to show. Let's go back and recall. So this is the attribute which I'm passing, and where I'm passing from the parent component. See, I'm passing this display screen to, and it is getting passed to screen to enabled. And depending on this, what I am doing, I am where I am. Sorry, I'm on the parent. I have to go here. Yeah. So in the render, you can see what I'm doing. I'm determining on this attribute to display which HTML file. Okay. So if this is true, that means my template 2 will be displayed. Second screen will be displayed. If it is false, then my lifecycle will be displayed. So now let's see if it is happening and what all lifecycle hooks are getting called, which is very important. I enabled this. This toggle button was present in my parent component, and you can see once I have made it true, I can see here I am on screen 2. Okay, I am screen 2. Where it was present in my child component, and here it was. Here I am screen 2. Okay, so basically it got toggled. Now we'll see what all lifecycle hooks were called. So when I modified this, first thing parent render was called. Okay, second child render was called, then child rendered callback was called, and then parent rendered callback was called. So that means child was rendered again. Okay, but when I was modifying this attribute, child was not getting called, only my parents lifecycle hooks were getting called. So it's not like if one of the attribute in your component is getting modified, your whole template is getting impacted. It's not like that. It's only impacted the part which is associated with those attributes. Okay. So this was all the lifecycle hooks, and when they are getting called, I guess this was the best example where you can see what is impacted when your different attributes are changed and how your child components behave when your attributes are changed. So yeah, you can utilize these hooks and write your code like what you have to do on the DOM load, what you have to do once it is added to your DOM. So all those different scenarios that you can utilize these lifecycle hooks. Now there is one more, you can say method. You cannot say lifecycle hook because it is not part of the standard HTML custom components interface. So I'll do one thing. Where is my that? Yeah, so I have written that scenario in my parent component, which I have commented here. So I'll uncomment this thing. This is the error callback. This is also one of the you can say lifecycle hooks, but it is specific to LWC. It is not present in the standard web components framework. So what I have done is I have written a method error callback like lifecycle hook, which gives two parameters, error and stack. From the error and stack, I am logging these four attributes, which is name, message, and stack from the error. And then there is a stack. So you'll see the difference between the stack which is coming in error and the stack which is coming directly. Okay. What it does is any of the child component has any error, it will get handled here, and it will be like whatever you want to do with those errors you can do. So what I am doing is I am just logging those errors. What if I don't use this? So first I'll show you if I don't use this, what will happen. Then you'll understand the need of having that. So I'm keeping it commented, and I'm creating one error in my child component. So what I will do is, so yeah, I am referring this attribute. What I'll do is I'll remove this. So once I remove this, it will not be able to identify where it was defined, and then it will throw error. So how to see? Let me deploy this component. Yep, deployed. Now let's come back, refresh my screen. See what will happen when I load this code. I got this error. You have some error in your page. Please see the technical stuff. Technical stuff is not that clear. You're not able to understand what has happened. Okay. You clicked on OK. There was something wrong. Now what I'll do, I'll try to switch this attribute, and when I will try to do that, it will again throw an error because that render will throw error. Render will be called again, and again it will not be able to identify what is that second screen to display. Yeah. When I switch this, it has again thrown an error which was uncaught, and it says screen to enabled is not defined. What was screen to enabled? My screen to enabled is my this attribute. So it is saying it is not defined, and it is throwing error here. Okay. So basically it is not handling, and there my child component is not getting rendered. So now you will see how I handle that error. I'll again go back to my parent component. Let me uncomment this code. Sorry. I'll deploy this component. So the error that I have created is in my child component, and where I'm handling is my parent component. So now my code is deployed. I will refresh my screen. Now see what will happen. I move here. Okay. My that there is some technical error on the page, message has gone. So no user impact, but there is an impact that child component is not visible here. But you can see the logs. It says something. What it says, constructor was loaded properly, then connected callback was called, then render was called, then child's constructor was called, connected callback was called. When child's render was getting called, at that time there was an error, and after that, that our error handler was called, and in the error handler we were logging the error. So what we were logging? We were logging the name. So name is the reference error. We were logging the message. Message says screen to enabled is not defined, and my error stack says reference error screen to is not defined, and all this. And then there is a stack separately. So if you see here, there is a stack separately. What it tells is which component has error. So there was a container component, inside that there was a parent, inside that there was a card, inside that there is a lifecycle component which has an error. So this is like totally descriptive, and you can it will help you to triage where is the issue, and it is easy to debug and figure out. So yeah, and it is not showing any errors or something, and like you can utilize this error handling and error callback, and you can like create error logs in your database and then store them, or like some other way, the way, any way that you want to handle your errors, you can handle in that way, so that it can help you with triaging the issue and yeah, logging them and fixing them. Okay, so I find them like useful. So yeah, this is also one of the life cycle hook present in LWC. So what all life cycle hooks we have seen? First thing is constructor, then connected callback, disconnected callback, rendered callback, render. From render, you can manipulate which HTML to display. So in a component, you can have multiple HTMLs, and you can determine which to display on basis of any flag or any logic that you want to write, and then you can determine whichever HTML you can display in the render file. Okay, and then your error callback. So these were your lifecycle hooks. I guess you have understood till now. Let's go back to our deck. Demo is done. So thank you. That's it in this session. And in the next session, I will be talking about working with Salesforce data, how you can pull data in sales from Salesforce, and how you can manipulate them, how you can again update data in Salesforce or do any DML operation. So we'll be talking about that. Thank you. Thanks a lot for giving your time. Do subscribe, keep watching our videos. If you have any questions, you can post your questions under the video, and I'll try my level best to answer them. And if you're posting your questions there, it will help other viewers also if they have the similar question. Thank you. Thanks a lot.